Hi everyone, I'm Giselle Fernandez for Los Angeles Magazine, and this is Big Shots. This is a series where we track down the big shots, titans of industry, movers and shakers who pass through Los Angeles every day and we don't know about it till now. We track them down, we want to find out what brings them to our fine city, what business trends are happening in their various industries, so we learn a little something when they're here. We want to find out what they love best about Los Angeles. We want to know when they're coming back. Today's big shot is former AEG president and CEO Tim Leiweke, whose sudden departure from the sports and entertainment giant after 17 years shocked Los Angeles. It was a major shakeup of a downtown heavyweight. Leiweke was known as the powerhouse driving force that helped diversify and build AEG into the sports and entertainment giant it is today. He was out in front, pushing hard for its sale on behalf of owner Phil Anschutz and the building of an NFL stadium. But in a striking move, Colorado billionaire and AEG owner Phil Anschutz showed who was boss, and in a flash, Los Angeles lost one of its most powerful movers and shakers. Leiweke now is the president of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment in Canada. But after 6 months of leaving AEG, we caught up with him when he returned to Los Angeles for the wedding of his only daughter. For the first time, he breaks his silence and speaks publicly to LAmagazine.com and to me about leaving AEG and parting ways with its chairman, Phil Anschutz. First of all, Tim Leiweke, it's great to see you in Los Angeles. You left so suddenly in March. We didn't even get a chance as a city to say a proper goodbye to the driving force, the powerhouse of downtown.
Well, I didn't get a chance to properly say goodbye either, so this is my chance to thank everyone for what has been a pretty amazing 20-year run here. So it's not a permanent goodbye. Los Angeles is a place that I think all of those that leave always aspire to come back and be a part of. And so it was predictable because of the process we were going through as a company.
You knew it was coming?
It was just simply we tried to sell the company. I knew the minute we got into that process, if that didn't end well, that I'd want to move on. And that's what happened. You
were downtown LA. We didn't see Phil Anschutz. He was the man behind the scenes. But you were not just the front man, but the driving energy and the consummate deal maker. In the process, because he was so much in the background, did you forget who was boss? Did you feel like you were the boss who can make the decisions?
People say that. To his credit, we never had any problems about our roles. I always understood it was his company and his money. And he always understood that in order to grow a company, you needed a CEO that was out front and public. And in our business, we were in the entertainment business and the sports business and the development business. And so we had to be aggressive. And it was a role he never wanted to play. He's a very quiet, private man, and I respected that about him. And he respected the fact that in LA, if you are quiet, you probably die. And so we had to be aggressive in our vision and trying to fight to do the things that we were trying to do here. So we understood the roles, and there was never any animosity about each other's role. And there was no, when we left.
So in the press, Chairman Anschutz said that the process got too noisy, that you were trying to push the sale of the NFL into the rich valuation at $8 to $10 billion, and that he wasn't as into the NFL deal as you were. True?
I think that story and the final chapter hasn't been written yet. And so I think he understands the value of bringing the NFL back to LA. I think he has respect for the league, and I think he does enjoy that idea. I think it's a great idea, and I think he shares that. And I think he is uniquely poised to be in a position to still finish that dream, and I hope he does.
There were never any harsh words between you? You weren't fired? It was a mutual agreement to leave?
Yeah, and he's not a harsh word kind of guy. We've done this for 20 years. So people at the end of the day that think that we got into a shouting match and declared nuclear war, that's not true.
Your departure, I think more than any in recent history, was not only shocking to the top executives of AEG, they all were stunned. If he can go, anyone can go, because you were the company. Was it as shocking for you that it happened?
I think there's a misnomer that I was AEG. AEG has 26,000 employees, and so it will go on, and it will do well, and the employees are good, and we built an unbelievable team. And I don't think, quite frankly, they're going to miss too many beats here. And so change sometimes is good. Maybe it requires fresh vision and other people to come in that have a new energy and a new way of doing things. We wish each other well. I cheer them on. They're my second favorite hockey team, my second favorite basketball team, and my second favorite soccer team. We do concerts in our building together. And so we'll continue to have a relationship, and there will be no animosity, and we move on. Life's too short for that.
Have you spoken to Phil in the past 6 months, or was it just silence between you after you left?
We see each other at board meetings.
You still see each other, and how do you feel about that?
I just move on, and so I don't talk about it, don't think about it.
Was he like a father figure to you in any way?
I don't talk about him. I just move on. I respect what he's trying to do and have great respect for AEG, and I have nothing but the best to wish them, to hope that they ultimately accomplish. I hope that this all is great for them. I hope they can get football. I'm a big fan of theirs, and I wish them nothing but the best. Life ultimately is determined by what we do, not what we wish upon others. So I wish them nothing but the best, because the definition of what I do with the rest of my life will not be based on whether or not they fail or they succeed. It'll be based on me.
What are your regrets?
Well, not getting the NFL. A lot of people put their necks on the line for that vision, whether it be Governor Brown or Mayor Villaraigosa at the time, or Councilperson Perry, or Maria Elena Durazo from the union standpoint, community activists. I mean, we had pretty much consensus, and as we all know in LA, that never happens. And so to get that many people to buy into the vision, to get that close to trying to finalize it, but more importantly, it's the right thing for Los Angeles. It would have changed our convention business. It would have changed our event business. It would have added a lot of new hotels in downtown Los Angeles. And I think that that project would have helped us rightly establish ourselves as a community, as a point of destination that would have had the ability to go out and bid and win on anything that we wanted to. And it would have been the #1 economic engine to drive the economy here. So I feel bad that we had so many people that bought into it, and obviously I'm not frustrated because, again, the final chapter hasn't been written. So you move on and you find new challenges in your life. And I still am optimistic that the second largest marketplace in the United States has an opportunity to be a part of what is the #1 league in the United States, the NFL.
Tim, do you think that you were too aggressive in your pushing for this deal, and that's why it didn't go through?
I don't think so. I don't think we would have accomplished everything we would have accomplished as a company if you weren't driven and focused, and at times maybe making the river run upstream a little bit. And so it's not a style that everyone loved, and certainly we occasionally stepped on some toes, and for that I'm not apologetic, but I do get that style isn't one that everyone loves, and so be it. In LA, you can't get things done quietly. It's not that kind of town. We're the entertainment capital of the world. Quiet doesn't work.
Yeah, and the NFL, there are some who say that they never would have bought into the developer owning the stadium anyway. Was that a deterrent, do you think, as well?
I think what you always have to remember about the NFL is, last time I checked, they're doing extremely well without LA. And so it had to be the perfect solution that was right for everyone. So it had to make sense for the league. It had to make sense for the other 31 owners that weren't coming here. It really had to make sense for the one team that was moving here. It obviously had to make sense for the private developer that was taking risk on the stadium. And it had to make sense for the rest of the campus. It had to fit into the calendar and the uniqueness of LA Live, because we can't open a building that's going to do 100 events a year and then suddenly create additional conflicts for the Convention Center, Staples Center, or Nokia Theater. And so it was a very unique project. It had a moment in time. I still think it has a moment in time. And I think, again, Phil is uniquely poised to finish it off if he can. So I hope he does.
But were you shocked when it happened so quickly? Did you see it coming?
You always go through, when you do something for 20 years and you put so much time and energy into it, you're always going to have a moment. But I've moved on to trying to take it as an opportunity to reprioritize life and find other things that challenge me on a daily basis. And so I always tell people I'm fairly certain my best days are still ahead of me. I think we all have that within our control. And I don't think, to me, this is anything more than just a part of my life. It definitely is not the end, and I don't think it'll be my greatest moment. I had good moments, but I think at the end of the day, I still have an opportunity to go do other things that will be equally as challenging, equally as impactful, and equally as dynamic.
Was it a big blow to you?
I don't believe him. You know, I remember there was a saying, and I think it was Muhammad Ali that used to go around and tell people this: the mark of a great boxer is not the one that never got knocked down, it's the guy that kept on getting back up. And so I don't worry about blows. Blows are good.
What have you learned most from it?
Priorities. And so it gave me a chance to step back and spend more time with my family, be more focused on my family, be more focused on what we want to do together and where I want to go.
But you're not your job, you're not just your title, you're much more than that.
Yeah, sometimes when you're in a position like that, it could overwhelm you, and it becomes everything. It becomes your personality, your happiness, your sorrow. It becomes your compass. It can't be your only compass. And so families are far more important, that I know. Health is far more important, that I really know.
I sense a lack of bravado in you, a humility.
I think as we get older, we get smarter, and we mature, and we begin to get more comfortable, hopefully, with what we've accomplished, and we don't have that insatiable drive of thinking that we gotta hurry and change the world. I think watching one's daughter get married and go through that life experience and seeing all of our friends come together and beginning to feel a sense of peace, of a huge accomplishment that you've kind of reached the goal line with on at least that part of her life and our life. You
just walked her down the aisle.
I just walked her down the aisle, yes, and it was fantastic. Clearly, being in a situation where we didn't finish everything we wanted to finish in LA humbles you, because you feel like you let some people down, and I do feel like I let some people down.
Like who?
People, and they know who they are, and they've heard that from me, and I'm in good stead with them because we communicate well, and I'm very honest at telling them that I still think I owe them. And so we'll continue to work through that and try to help them because I think I owe it to them.
You don't want to go any deeper with me on that?
Nope.
What were you most proud of? I mean, there's so many accomplishments there. Tim Leiweke in the city. What's your top three?
Well, I don't think it's any secret that the Kings winning the Stanley Cup is something that we had promised the fans that they deserve. And despite occasional rumors that I wasn't committed to the Kings, I was always in love with the Kings and always had them as my highest priority. And having the ability of being a part of that Stanley Cup team and winning that cup for our fans who had suffered for 45 years, and to see people like Bob Miller and Jimmy Fox and Luc Robitaille, to see guys like Dustin Brown on the team that have been with us from day one, Anze Kopitar. You know, that was very, very special, and it was special for the city, and to see 500,000 people turn out for the parade. Getting Staples Center built was really a work of a lot of people. Ed Roski really had the vision. Phil took the risk. AEG and the people that were part of that company stepping up and figuring out a way to do something no one ever thought that we can do. Having a lot of people from outside our community come in and tell our community it wouldn't make a difference, it wouldn't make an impact, it wouldn't have an economic upside, and then beginning to see the economic upside and prove those people wrong. And then trying to create a heart in the city that, let's admit it, Los Angeles hasn't always had a center. And that became a center for activity, for sports, for happiness. At the Laker parades, and to see the number of people that would turn out for those, pretty amazing.
Beckham in the Galaxy?
Well, you know, David and I are still friends. He came in for my daughter's wedding. I think the world of him. I still think David's greatest accomplishments are ahead of him too. So that was great. It changed Major League Soccer. If you look at the impact that our company had on creating the designated player rule and bringing in David Beckham. But now you have Landon Donovan and you have Robbie Keane. And so the Galaxy will continue to do, I think, extraordinary things. And so I don't like looking back at accomplishments, one, because then it tends to make you a little bit less driven at continuing to do things in your life. But two, it's kind of like, well, you know, tell me your report card. Well, I don't think I'm done taking the class yet, so I don't want to look at my report card yet.
Is there anything in LA you wanted to do other than the stadium that now you go, not going to happen?
Well, I think I'll be back one day, and so I don't think I'm done here. My family and I love it here. All of our friends are here. We spent 20 years here. We're ingrained in this community. Our heart's here. And so I don't think we're done here yet. And so I don't have any regrets yet because I still think I have a chance to try to make sure that report card looks good at the end of the day.
Tim, you are one of the unique leaders and maverick voices in this city who knows government better than anyone and how to try to drive that needle and break the stagnation to get things done. What is it going to take, from your perspective, to get this city moving, economically vital, bringing businesses back, to keep that heart as you were doing here as the front man for AEG?
I think it's a deeper problem, which is I think this is a community that is probably as vivid an example of the haves and have-nots as there is in the United States. And so there are so many issues that face us, from our educational system and the amount of money and time and energy that we put into our kids and whether or not it's having the impact it should, to our infrastructure and the amount of time people spend, you know, traffic here, quite frankly, is the worst I've ever seen it. And so trying to find the right kind of vision. You know, you look at now what's going on with the bullet train and suddenly that being put back on the legal path again, which is uniquely California, unfortunately. Does it happen every place else? Yes, but not to the extent it does here. So I think the problem is that you have friction, and whether it's the haves and the have-nots, whether it's developers compared to the average Joe. I always used to refer to it as the cavemen, citizens against virtually everything, and the battle that they want to have with anyone that wants to build anything. I think the community and the leaders have to understand that it's going to take everyone, the leaders of labor, the leaders of the business community, the political leaders, and the media leaders, to come together and begin to forge a vision for what it is that this city wants to be 20, 30, 50 years from now. And I think some have tried to do that. I think Antonio did a good job of trying to push that through, but I think not everyone was at the table and not everyone shared the vision. And so...
You think Eric has that kind of leadership?
I think Eric has that kind of potential. Do I think Eric has that leadership today? I think Eric is going to have to find the balance between sticking his neck out there occasionally, making tough decisions, and supporting things that are going to have to create jobs, even if not everyone's on the same page. The airport's a great example. They got to fix the airport. I know there's a lot of people in and around that neighborhood that voice their opinion about the runway and the improvements. I'm pretty sure they knew they were moving next to the airport. And so it shouldn't be a shock to them that planes are going to land there. And the industry is making bigger planes. And those planes are going to land in San Francisco and Seattle and Colorado and Denver and New York. And if you look at the future of our economy, that Asian peninsula, that Asian trade, and us being the port for the Pacific Rim is critical. Well, we're going to be under siege. There are other people that want that economic benefit, including San Francisco. There are other people that want our ports, including the Panama Canal and the fact they want to expand it. And Houston wants to be the port capital for Asia. Mexico wants to be the port capital for the goods that come into our country now.
The Arctic.
The Arctic wants to be the port capital. And so we need to understand that as you go around the world and you begin to become part of these communities, there are communities that have all of those players at the table. They have created a vision and they're implementing that vision. And 20 years from now, LA is going to find itself in a position where we're going to be way behind the 8 ball. And our economy is going to continue to lag, and the rift between the haves and the have-nots will be worse. Transportation will be worse. Education will be worse.
And that's what happens. Like you said, that our leadership falls into the council members. Do we have, a body that's going to make things move?
And I think therein lies Eric's challenge. Eric does not have a form of government where he has the right and the power to make those decisions and force them through. He must build a consensus because it is a council form of government, not a mayoral form of government. And so Herb Wesson, who's the president of the council, and Eric Garcetti have to be at the table. But what they need to understand is occasionally they're going to have to take tough stands that a lot of people don't agree with, whether it be the airport, whether it be transportation, whether it be education, or whether it be development. And they have to understand that without that the government no longer has the capability of being the generator of jobs and the generator of wealth and the generator of closing the gap. That is going to have to be the private sector, but the private sector is not going to feel comfortable in a community that ultimately they feel they have to battle with in order to make any progress. And everyone's going to have to come together and build a consensus on how you get past that. If we don't, as a community, get past that, I think it's going to be very tough here.
Is that LA's biggest problem?
Yes, no question, the gap between the haves and the have-nots and the inability to create a vision to bridge that gap by fixing our education, fixing our transportation and infrastructure, and finding a way to drive this economy for the next 20 to 50 years. You wrap that into one little statement, and what you have there is it's called vision. And LA is going to need it because you can see, even as I come back 6 months later, and I begin to look at the transportation issues here, they're serious. And it's a problem, and they need to get ahead of it. And it's you can't keep on thinking we could do it by adding a lane.
You know, you were one of the guys who, in fact, I remember you saying this. You didn't have to couch what you said. You could say what you wanted because that's just who you were. And you said the truth, and you spoke it boldly. Has that changed?
Well, no. Now I could do it and not fear. I'm fairly certain that in Toronto they don't get too upset if I talk about how the transportation system in LA is not very good. So I don't have an agenda, and I don't have anything that I want people to buy. I don't have an end goal here. This is where I lived. I hope this is where I live again at some point in the future. I care deeply for Los Angeles. To me, it is my home, even though I'm no longer here. But I do believe this is a great community, and I think it could be even better. And I think that it used to be that when you talked about the great ideas in the world, and you talked about the great places to live and the places to learn and the places to ultimately enjoy life, this was it. And we need to get back to being on that mantle again, at being the place that dreams are created, and everyone else with dreams wants to come here and be a part of it. And I'm not sure that's the place that we have today in society.
Do you think that's because in Los Angeles particularly, as opposed to other cities, that we don't have enough elite civic engagement? And if so, why not?
I think it is hard to reach consensus in LA. It's hard to get everybody on the same page in LA.
Because they care about specific projects, but not about a city. They don't have that heart of the city.
And let's admit, we live in a city of cities. And so everyone lives in their own community. They think about their own community. They revert back to that community to live, to play, to work, to enjoy life. And so we certainly don't necessarily have a community and a consensus and a vision that centers around one central heart of the city. And thus people tend to be, you go to a lot of places like in Toronto. Downtown Toronto is the hub of the city. Everything's there. The culture, the arts, the sports, the transportation, the Union Station, all of the headquarters, the colleges are all in and around the downtown community, and people live in and around downtown Toronto. There's 109 different towers under construction in downtown Toronto today. And so it's a very vibrant downtown area. I think LA as a community is made up of many different communities, and so it doesn't feel as much like a city when you compare it to other places like a Chicago or a New York or a Toronto, some of the other major markets around the world.
One of the things that made you tremendously visionary is your understanding of the importance of the Hispanic demographic in marketplace. You understood the fan base of the Galaxy, of certainly the NFL, the Kings, and also, Staples Center, Nokia. Do you think the city understands, whether it be media, whether it be business, the importance of this burgeoning economic force?
I think anyone that has vision understands the future of the city is the Hispanic marketplace. And that's why we were always bullish on soccer and the Galaxy. And, you know, people always took that to mean we had to go get a great Mexican player or a great Central American player. And what they didn't understand is that the true Hispanic fans that like soccer just wanted to see great soccer. That's what they were used to. And whether it be the Mexican League or the Premier League or teams from Spain or Italy, that's what they aspired to see and be a part of and cheer for. But what we knew is they love soccer. And so it wasn't as much, let's build a team that's all Hispanic, let's build a team that's all Mexican. It was, let's build a team that captures the attention and the emotion of this community, and that we do it in a sport that a lot of the Hispanics ultimately really love, relate to, and admire. David Beckham was just as popular with the Hispanic population as Dos Santos or Hernandez or any other player we could have brought in from Mexico. And so I think that's why we invested in the Galaxy, is we knew that was heart and soul, a key sport. It always amazed me with the Lakers. They've done a very good job with the Hispanic community. And when you saw the championship parades, what you began to understand is they were the favorite team at the time with that Hispanic community. The Dodgers have always done a very good job of that. And so we tried to emulate that because we knew where the future of this community was going. With music, it was a high priority ultimately. You know, amazingly in this country, even today, there's not a dominant promoter for the Hispanic music or the Hispanic fans of music. And I think that'll change eventually as we begin to figure out where the future is, where the discretionary income is. And when you look at a marketplace like LA, you understand that's the future of entertainment here. I also think we tried to do that when we forged relationships with people like Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy, because we understood, he understood that community and the sport and boxing in particular better than anybody towards that community. So I think companies that don't understand that probably won't be along and around very long, because that's where this community is headed. And when you look at the leaders of this community, when you look at the businesses and those that own them in this community, when you look at the media in this community, that is going to set the tone, which means they're going to have to take the lead on trying to forge the vision going forward.
How do you leave a city like this where you were so entrenched in every exciting franchise and go to the Maple Leafs? What's the bridge? How did you cross that bridge?
It's still not easy. You know, as it relates to the Maple Leafs, and I got into a little trouble when I said this, but they didn't read the rest of the statement. I think if they understood what I was talking about, when the Maple Leafs made the playoffs, a third of the entire country watched the games. It is not a sport there. It is a culture there, and it's part of their lifestyle, and it's unique. I hope the Kings could get to that point here, but I will tell you, it is unique there. So you walk into that tradition and history, and on one hand, I probably didn't understand how deep it was, and on the other hand, what I understand is we had to change the culture a little bit because we haven't won a Stanley Cup in Toronto since 1967. And so we got to stop celebrating the past and start focusing on our opportunity to create the history today. And they have a pretty good team, and we have a chance now to begin to create our own record and our own history and our own tradition and a whole new set of fans for the current players. And so I probably didn't do a good job of communicating that when I first went there, and we're learning how to do that. But that's the uniqueness of being a U.S. citizen moving to Canada and becoming aware of the uniqueness of their traditions up there, including the Maple Leafs, and in particular, the Maple Leafs.
And your daughter married a Canadian who you've just signed, and the fans think it's a little bit of nepotism, but not true?
Well, I didn't just sign. That's the good news. As it turns out, the young man played for our coach, Randy Carlisle, when he was with the Ducks. And Dave Nonis, our general manager, was also with the Ducks at the time, so they know him well. He's a good kid. You took some time to speak publicly. Why now? Well, I feel comfortable with my friend. I didn't want to do it on the heels of what happened. I wanted to give them time because I don't want to do anything to cause them any controversy or grief. And in turn, from my standpoint, I was in town with all of my friends and my family for the wedding, and this still feels like home to me. And so even though it isn't home anymore, and I want to make sure the California Equalization Board hears that, it may and probably will be again. And so I have an ambition and a love of this community, and my guess is that our paths will cross again. And so I don't want to disconnect with the community. And I certainly want to set the record straight. For example, I know that there was a little bit of a rumbling with the Kings fans that I had said some things that were disrespectful. Couldn't be further from the truth. I am the biggest fan the Kings have outside of cheering for the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is my team, and I love them and I'm passionate about them and will fight aggressively to help them win a Stanley Cup. But I think the world of this team, these kids, these players are friends, and I saw them grow up, and I still consider them friends. And so Luc Robitaille was at my daughter's wedding, and I'm glad he was, because I love Luc Robitaille. I will always be passionate about this city. I will always be passionate about these teams, the Lakers and the Kings and the Galaxy. I will always be passionate about what that company is trying to do, because I believe it's a good company with good people. And one day I hope to be part of the next vision for LA, because I happen to think it's a great community and not nearly as cold during the winter.
What will you miss most?
I think friends and just living in this community and enjoying the lifestyle. It's a wonderful place to live.
Well, there's never been a stronger advocate for Los Angeles, a bigger mover and shaker, a bigger big shot that the city has seen in leadership than Tim Leiweke. So I hope you're back and back often, and thank you for choosing Los Angeles Magazine and me to say a proper farewell. The city wanted it. They were looking to hear from you, and we really thank you for sitting down with us.
Well, I'm glad to do it, and we'll see everybody soon, I'm sure.
Good, good.
Cheers.
Cheers. For Los Angeles Magazine, I'm Giselle Fernandez. See you next time on Big Shots.